Have you ever wondered how to make your own sourdough at home? It's a question that has intrigued many, especially in recent years. Sourdough, with its tangy flavor, rustic texture, and irresistible aroma, has been a staple in many cultures for centuries. Its history is as rich as its flavor, dating back to ancient Egypt, where it was discovered by accident. Today, sourdough has seen a resurgence in popularity. And why not? Its unique taste sets it apart from regular bread, and the process of making it at home is both rewarding and therapeutic. Plus, sourdough is packed full of probiotics, making it a healthier alternative to store-bought bread. Imagine waking up to the smell of freshly baked bread, knowing that you made it with your own two hands, using a process passed down through generations. It's not just about baking bread, it's about creating a connection with our past, while nourishing our bodies in the present. So, are you ready to dive into the world of sourdough making? The secret to a good sourdough bread is a healthy sourdough starter. So what exactly is a sourdough starter, you might ask? Simply put, it's a live culture of flour and water. That's right, it's alive. This lively concoction is what gives sourdough bread its unique tangy flavor and delightful airy texture. Creating your own sourdough starter isn't a complex process. It's as basic as mixing equal amounts of water and flour together. But don't be fooled by its simplicity. It's this humble mix that sets the stage for a captivating performance by billions of yeast and bacteria, transforming simple ingredients into something magical. Now let's delve a little deeper. As the flour and water sit together, they begin to ferment. This is where the magic happens. Wild yeast, naturally present in the flour, starts to consume the carbohydrates, producing carbon dioxide gas and alcohol. This is what gives rise to the dough and contributes to that distinct sourdough taste. Meanwhile, lactic acid bacteria, also naturally present in the mix, starts to work its magic too. It feasts on the byproducts of the yeast, creating lactic acid. This acid further enhances the flavor profile of your bread, adding that characteristic tang. Maintaining this microbial ecosystem requires a bit of care and feeding. Regularly adding fresh flour and water, also known as feeding your starter, keeps the yeast and bacteria happy and active. It's like tending to a tiny pet, one that rewards you with delicious bread. A well-tended starter can last you for years, becoming more complex and flavorful with age. You can even share it with friends and family, passing on the unique flavors developed in your kitchen. So, there you have it. A sourdough starter is more than just flour and water. It's a living, breathing entity that embodies the art of bread making. It's a testament to the beauty of fermentation and the power of patience. Remember, a good starter is the heart of your sourdough bread. So, treat it with love and respect, and it will reward you with the most delicious and satisfying sourdough loaves. Creating your own sourdough starter is a simple but rewarding process. It's akin to cultivating a small, floury pet that will soon help you bake the loveliest loaves of bread. Let's dive right into the process. Step 1 is all about mixing. In a clean glass jar, combine equal parts unbleached flour and filtered water. You might wonder why unbleached flour? Well, unbleached flour is less processed, and thus, it retains more of the natural yeasts and bacteria that will help your starter grow. As for the water, filtered is best, as tap water can contain chlorine, which may inhibit the growth of your starter. Stir the mixture until it resembles a thick, sticky dough. Then cover it loosely with a cloth and let it sit at room temperature. This begins the fermentation process, where the natural yeasts start to consume the sugars in the flour, producing carbon dioxide and alcohol. This is what will give your sourdough its distinctive tang. After 24 hours, you'll move on to step 2, feeding your starter. Remove half of the mixture, then add in the same amount of flour and water as before. This keeps the yeast population in check and provides fresh food for the yeasts to ferment. Repeat this feeding process daily. After about a week, your starter should be bubbly and have a pleasant yeasty aroma. This means it's ready to be used in your sourdough bread recipes. But remember, a mature sourdough starter will give you the best flavor and rise, so don't rush it. If you're not baking every day, you can store your starter in the fridge and feed it once a week. Just make sure to let it come to room temperature before using it, and that's it. You've just learned how to create your own sourdough starter. It's a bit of a commitment, sure, but the rewards are well worth it. Imagine the satisfaction of baking your own loaf of bread from scratch with a starter you've nurtured with your own two hands. Patience is key here, as your starter needs time to mature. But trust me, your taste buds will thank you. Now that you have your starter ready, it's time to make your sourdough bread. The magic of sourdough bread lies in the transformation of simple ingredients: flour, water, and your starter. It's a journey of patience, precision, and passion. So let's embark on this bread-making adventure. First, mix your starter with warm water until it's all bubbly and happy. Then, add your flour. This is your dough's foundation, where the alchemy of bread making begins. While mixing, remember to incorporate the flour gradually. This helps create a uniform texture, ensuring that your bread has a consistent crumb. Once you've mixed your dough, it's time for kneading. This isn't just about stretching the dough, it's about developing the gluten. Gluten gives your bread its structure. It's what makes it chewy and gives it that satisfying pull when you tear a piece off. So roll up your sleeves and put your back into it. Kneading should take about 10 to 15 minutes. You're looking for a smooth, elastic texture. If the dough sticks to your fingers like a stubborn piece of gum, add a little more flour. After kneading comes the first proofing. This is when you let the dough rest and rise. It's during this time that the yeast in your starter gets to work, producing carbon dioxide and causing the dough to inflate. This process can take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. It's a slow process, but it's worth the wait. Once your dough has doubled in size, it's time to shape it. You can make a traditional round loaf or get creative with braids or twists. After shaping, the dough needs to rest again in what we call the second proofing. This allows the gluten to relax and the yeast to work its magic once more. Now, the moment you've been waiting for: baking. Preheat your oven to a hot 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Just before you put your loaf in the oven, score the top. This allows steam to escape and gives your bread that beautiful artisan look. Bake your bread for about 30 minutes or until it's a gorgeous golden brown. When you tap the bottom of the loaf, it should sound hollow. That's the sign of a perfectly baked sourdough. Let your bread cool before slicing into it. I know, the smell of fresh bread is intoxicating, but resist the temptation. Cutting into hot bread can crush the crumb structure we worked so hard to create. And there you have it, a loaf of warm, crusty sourdough bread made right at home. Sourdough bread is more than just food. It's a testament to the beauty of patience, the joy of creation, and the satisfaction of a job well done. So savor each bite, and remember the journey that brought you here. So, you've made it through the sourdough making process. Let's do a quick recap. We began our journey with the intrigue of sourdough, uncovering the beauty behind this age-old bread. We discovered the magic of fermentation and how it's the secret behind sourdough's unique, tangy flavor. We also learned that, unlike other breads, sourdough doesn't require commercial yeast. Instead, it's all about nurturing your own living, breathing sourdough starter. Speaking of starters, we then dove into the nitty-gritty of creating one. We learned that making a sourdough starter is more about fostering a wild yeast environment with just flour and water. It's a process that requires patience and persistence, but the reward is a starter that's uniquely yours, carrying a flavor profile that's influenced by your very own home. Once we had our starters ready, we moved on to preparing the sourdough. This is where things got a little technical, but we made it through. We learned about the importance of ratios, temperature, and time, and how these elements can greatly influence the outcome of your bread. We also discovered the art of folding and shaping the dough, a technique that contributes to the bread's structure and those lovely air pockets we all adore. And finally, we ventured into the actual baking. We learned that baking sourdough is not just about popping the dough into the oven. It involves understanding the right temperature, baking time, and even the importance of steam in achieving that perfect crust and crumb. So there you have it, the sourdough making process in a nutshell. It's a journey that requires time, patience, and a good dose of passion. But the result is nothing short of magical. A loaf of bread that's not just delicious, but also carries a piece of your heart and home in every slice. Now, you have the knowledge to bake your own sourdough bread. Happy baking!